Maya Chen was tired. The kind of tired that made her bones feel heavy and her eyes burn like someone had rubbed sand into them. She had been working in the university lab for 11 hours straight, surrounded by glass jars filled with preserved specimens and the quiet hum of machines that never slept. The clock on the wall said it was past midnight. The coffee in her cup had gone cold hours ago, but she drank it anyway. Her research paper was due in 3 days, and she still had so much work to do. Outside the window, the campus was empty and dark. The other students had gone home long ago. Maya was alone, just her and the dead things floating in their jars, keeping her company in the silence. She did not hear the ship arrive. No one on Earth did. The Velthrani vessel hung in the upper atmosphere like a dark cloud, invisible to human technology. Inside, creatures that looked like giant insects made of glass and shadow studied their screens with cold satisfaction. Lead researcher Kethval clicked his mandibles together as he reviewed the data. The target was perfect. A young female of the human species. Student caste. No military training. No weapons. No authority. She was alone in a building full of dead organic matter, completely unaware that she had been chosen. Begin the extraction, Kethval ordered. A beam of pale blue light cut through the night sky. It passed through the roof of the lab building like the roof was not even there. It found Maya Chen standing at her workstation, coffee cup in hand, eyes focused on her computer screen. One moment she was there. The next moment she was gone. The coffee cup fell and shattered on the floor. The computer screen continued to glow, waiting for a user who would never return. Maya woke up in a white room. The walls were smooth and cold and curved in a way that made her head hurt when she tried to understand them. There were no doors that she could see. No windows. Just white light coming from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. She tried to stand, but her legs felt like water. Her stomach twisted with a sickness she had never felt before. Something was very wrong. This was not her lab. This was not anywhere on Earth. Hello? Her voice came out weak and shaky. Is anyone there? The wall in front of her became transparent, like a window appearing out of nothing. Maya scrambled backward until her back hit the opposite wall. On the other side of the new window stood a nightmare. The creature was at least 7 feet tall. Its body was covered in something that looked like black glass, shaped into plates and angles that caught the light in wrong ways. Its head was triangular, with huge compound eyes that reflected Maya's terrified face back at her in 1,000 tiny pieces. Long arms ended in hands with too many fingers, each one sharp as a knife. More of them appeared behind the first one. 5, 10. They stood in a row, watching her like scientists watching a rat in a cage, because that is exactly what she was now. A rat in a cage. Kethval studied the human specimen with professional interest. It was smaller than he had expected. Soft skin, dull teeth, no claws, no armor, no natural weapons of any kind. The creature was shaking, its eyes wide and wet. Fear response. Good. Fear was the first step toward compliance. Begin standard observation protocol, he ordered. We will start conditioning in 12 rotations. The other researchers clicked their agreement. This one would be easy. The humans came from a small planet at the edge of nowhere. They had only just started to reach beyond their own atmosphere. Primitive. Weak. Perfect test subjects for the consortium's compliance experiments. What the Velthrani did not understand was that small and soft did not mean weak. They had scanners that could count the atoms in a drop of water, but they had no way to measure what lived inside a human heart. Maya pressed her hands against the cold wall and forced herself to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Slow and steady. She had learned this technique when she was 14 years old, lying perfectly still, while a brown bear sniffed at her face in the forest behind her grandmother's house. She had learned it again when she was 19, treating her own snakebite with a pocket knife and determination, because help was too far away. Earth was not a kind planet. It was a world of earthquakes and hurricanes and floods. A world of predators with sharp teeth and prey that had learned to fight back. A world of diseases that evolved faster than medicine could catch up. Every human who lived to grow old had survived 1,000 small deaths along the way. Maya did not know any of this in words. She just knew it in her bones. She knew that fear was just a feeling, and feelings could be controlled. She knew that being trapped was not the same as being defeated. She knew that she was still breathing, and as long as she was breathing, she still had a chance. The creatures on the other side of the glass clicked and buzzed at each other in a language she could not understand. They pointed at her with their sharp fingers. They made notes on devices that glowed with strange light. Maya watched them back. She noticed how the tall ones seemed to give orders while the others listened. She noticed how they moved, graceful but stiff, like they had never had to run from anything in their lives. She noticed how the light in the room changed color when they operated their machines. She filed every detail away in her mind like pieces of a puzzle. She did not know what picture they would make yet, but she knew that knowledge was power, and right now, knowledge was the only weapon she had. In her cell, alone and afraid but not broken, Maya Chen began to plan. The Velthrani thought they had captured a student, a soft creature from a soft world, an easy subject for their experiments. They had no idea what they had actually brought onto their ship. They had captured a daughter of Earth, a child of the Deathworld, a survivor, and survivors do not give up. They adapt, they endure, they wait for their moment. Maya's moment had not come yet, but it would. She was sure of it. For now, she would watch, she would learn, she would survive, and when the time was right, she would show these creatures exactly what it meant to be human. The first test came on what Maya guessed was her third day in the cell. She had no way to know for sure. There was no sun here, no clock, no way to track the passing of time except by counting her own heartbeats. The temperature dropped without warning. One moment the air was comfortable. The next moment, Maya could see her own breath forming clouds in front of her face. The cold bit into her skin like tiny needles. Her fingers went numb. Her teeth began to chatter. Through the transparent wall, she could see the insect creatures watching her. They held devices that blinked with colored lights. They were taking notes, recording data, waiting to see what she would do. Most species they had tested before would curl up into a ball and wait to die, or they would scream and beg for mercy, or their bodies would simply shut down as the cold overwhelmed their systems. Maya did none of these things. She stood up on shaking legs and started to move, jumping jacks first, then running in place, then push-ups, as many as she could manage before her arms gave out. Her body protested with every movement, but she forced it to obey. Heat was energy, and energy came from motion. This was basic survival. Every human child learned it in school. The Velthrani researchers exchanged confused clicks. The specimen was not behaving according to their models. They lowered the temperature further. Maya kept moving. Her lungs burned with each breath of frozen air. Ice crystals formed on her eyelashes, but her core temperature stayed stable. Her heart kept pumping. She refused to fall. After what felt like hours, the cold stopped. The temperature returned to normal. Maya collapsed onto the floor, exhausted but alive. On the other side of the glass, Kethval made a note in his records. Interesting. The human had shown unexpected thermal resistance. Perhaps they had miscalculated something. The second test was sound. They filled her cell with noise that seemed to come from inside her own skull. High-pitched screams, low rumbles that made her stomach churn, patterns of sound that were designed to break down mental resistance and create a state of helpless confusion. Maya pressed her hands over her ears. It did not help much. The sound was everywhere, vibrating through the walls and floor and air itself. She thought of her grandmother's house again. The old woman had lived near a highway, and trucks would roar past at all hours of the night. As a child, Maya had hated it. She could not sleep. The noise made her want to scream. Her grandmother had taught her a trick. She taught Maya to hum, not loud enough to compete with the noise, but just loud enough to give her brain something else to focus on. A familiar melody, a pattern that made sense. Maya started to hum now, an old song her mother used to sing. The tune was simple and sweet, about birds and sunshine and coming home. It was not loud enough to block out the alien noise, but it was enough to give her mind an anchor, something to hold on to while the chaos raged around her. The Velthrani watched with growing frustration. The specimen was not breaking. She should have been reduced to a trembling wreck by now. Instead, she sat in the center of her cell, eyes closed, humming to herself like a child waiting for a storm to pass. They tried hunger next. No food for 5 days. Maya had been hungry before. Not like this. Not this long. But she knew what it felt like when her body started to consume itself. She knew the headaches and the weakness and the way her thoughts became slow and foggy. She also knew how to make it through. She stopped moving so much. She conserved her energy. She drank the water they gave her slowly, making each sip last. She let her body slip into a quieter state, her metabolism slowing down to match her reduced intake. Humans had evolved for this. Her ancestors had survived ice ages and famines and long winters with empty bellies. That strength was written into her DNA. On day 12, something changed. Maya had been watching her captors carefully all this time. She had noticed patterns in their behavior. The way they moved, the sounds they made when they communicated, the rhythm of their speech. If it could be called speech, she had started to recognize words. Simple things at first. The sound they made when they were acknowledging an order. The click that seemed to mean yes. The lower buzz that seemed to mean no. When the guards came to check on her that day, Maya was ready. She stood at the transparent wall and waited until the tall one, the leader, looked at her. Then she opened her mouth and spoke. "You made a mistake." The words came out rough and strange, her human throat struggling to make sounds it was never designed for. But the meaning was clear enough. The Velthrani language had been built for insect mouths, not mammal ones, but Maya had found a way to make it work. The effect was immediate. Every creature in the room went still, their compound eyes fixed on her with a new kind of attention, not just scientific interest, something closer to surprise, maybe even fear. Kethval moved closer to the glass. He studied the human with fresh eyes. She should not have been able to do that. Their language was considered impossible for most species to learn without technological assistance. The neural patterns required were completely different from standard galactic communication. "How did you learn to speak?" he asked, his own voice coming through a translation device built into the wall. Maya smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "I listened," she said in his language. "I watched. I learned." She tilted her head, studying him the same way he had been studying her. "You think I am weak because I am small. You think I am stupid because I come from a young planet. But you are wrong." She pressed her palm flat against the glass. "On my world, everything tries to kill us. The weather, the animals, the sickness in the air, even the plants. We do not survive by being the strongest or the fastest. We survive by never giving up. We survive by learning. We survive by adapting to anything." She leaned closer, her breath fogging the glass. "You cannot break me. I was born broken and put myself back together. I have done it 1,000 times. I will do it 1,000 more. And every time you try to hurt me, I will learn something new about you." For the first time since the experiments began, Kethval felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Uncertainty. The human was not behaving like prey. She was behaving like something else entirely. Something that watched and waited and planned. Something that did not accept defeat. He ordered her move to maximum isolation, away from the other specimens, away from any source of information. But as Maya was led away in restraints, she was still smiling. She had already learned enough. She had already planted the first seeds. Now she just needed them to grow. Before they moved her to isolation, Maya had been held in cell block 4. It was a long corridor lined with transparent walls, each one containing a different creature from a different world. The Velthrani had been collecting specimens for a long time. Maya had used every moment to learn, not just about her captors, but about the others who shared her prison. In the cell next to hers, there had been a creature that looked like a large blue flower with eyes. It called itself Vian, and it came from a world of endless gardens where nothing ever died of violence. The concept of being hunted was so strange to its people that they did not even have a word for fear. Vian had been in the cell for 60 cycles when Maya arrived. Its petals had lost their color. Its voice, which came out as a soft musical chime, had grown quiet and weak. It had given up hope long ago. Maya talked to it through the wall. She could not speak its language, but she learned that Vian could understand the Velthrani translation system. So she spoke in the clicks and buzzes she had learned, and the system turned her words into music that Vian could hear. "Tell me about your home," Maya said. At first, Vian did not respond. It had stopped responding to anything. But Maya was patient. She asked again the next day, and the next, and the next. On the 4th day, Vian answered. It told her about fields of golden light and rivers that sang as they flowed. It told her about its family, a garden of connected beings who shared thoughts and feelings through their roots. It told her about the day the sky had opened and the cold ones had come to take it away. Maya listened to every word. She asked questions. She remembered the answers. And when Vian finished, she told a story of her own. She told Vian about Earth, about the mountains and oceans and forests full of life, about the way humans had learned to survive in every environment, from frozen wastelands to burning deserts, about the strength that came from facing death every day and choosing to keep living anyway. On my world, Maya said, we have a saying, what does not kill you makes you stronger. You are still alive, Ven. That means you are still strong. Something changed in the flower creature's eyes. A tiny spark of color returned to its petals. I do not feel strong, Veen chimed sadly. Strength is not a feeling, Maya replied. It is a choice. Every moment you choose to keep breathing, you are being strong. Every moment you refuse to let them take your memories of home, you are fighting back. Words spread through the cell block. The human who talked back to the Velthrani. The human who would not break. The human who spoke of something called hope. Other specimens began to listen. A group of small furry creatures from a moon of perpetual twilight. A being made of living crystal that had not moved in weeks. A family of four-armed giants who had been reduced to silent shells by the conditioning. Maya could not reach all of them directly. The cells were designed to prevent communication between specimens, but she found ways. Tapping patterns on the walls, hand signals through the glass. Messages passed through the translation system during the brief moments when the guards were not watching. She taught them what she knew. How to control fear through breathing. How to find small rebellions that the captors could not punish. How to hold on to hope when everything seemed lost. Do not look down when they come, she told them. Look them in the eyes. Let them see that you are still there. Let them see that you are still fighting. The Velthrani noticed the change. Their compliance metrics began to shift in the wrong direction. Specimens who had been fully broken started showing signs of recovery. The fear responses they had carefully cultivated were being replaced by something else, something harder to measure. Kethval ordered increased conditioning across all cell blocks. More cold, more noise, more hunger. But for every measure they took, the specimens found new ways to resist. The crystal being started to glow again, its inner light pulsing in patterns that matched the rhythms Maya had taught. The furry creatures began to groom each other, rebuilding bonds that the isolation had tried to destroy. The four-armed giants stood tall for the first time in months, and through it all, the human female sat in her cell, watching everything with eyes that missed nothing. When they finally came to move her to isolation, Maya did not resist. She let them put the restraints on her wrists and ankles. She walked quietly between the guards, her head held high, but as she passed each cell, she made eye contact with the creatures inside. She gave them small nods, tiny smiles, silent messages that said more than words ever could. I see you. You are not alone. Keep fighting. The isolation wing was deep in the belly of the ship. The walls were thick and solid. There were no other cells nearby, no one to talk to, nothing to see but empty white. The Velthrani thought they were cutting her off from her source of power. They thought that without an audience, without anyone to inspire, she would finally break. They did not understand. Maya had not been giving strength to the others. She had been showing them the strength they already had. That strength did not disappear just because she was no longer there to remind them of it. In cell block 4 and 5 and 6, creatures from 100 different worlds looked at each other through their transparent walls. They remembered the things the human had taught them. They remembered the fire in her eyes and the steel in her voice. They began to talk to each other, to share stories, to make plans. Maya sat in her isolation cell, alone in the dark, and smiled. The Velthrani thought they had contained the problem by removing her. They did not realize that she had never been the fire. She had only been the spark. The fire was already spreading, and soon, very soon, it would be too big for anyone to put out. Maya closed her eyes and waited. She did not know how long it would take. She did not know exactly what would happen. But she knew one thing with perfect certainty. The time for watching and learning was almost over. The time for action was coming, and when it came, these creatures would learn what happened when you gave a human nothing left to lose. They came to move her on what she guessed was her 20th day in isolation. 2 guards, standard restraints, no weapons visible. Why would they need weapons? She was just a small, soft creature from a primitive world. Maya had been waiting for this moment. She had spent her time in the dark doing 2 things. First, she had rested. Real rest. Deep and complete, letting her body recover from the weeks of testing and deprivation. Second, she had planned. The guards opened her cell door with the casual confidence of beings who had never been afraid of a specimen. They clicked at her in their language, ordering her to stand and present her wrists for binding. Maya stood. She walked toward them slowly, her head bowed, her shoulders slumped. Every part of her body language said defeat, surrender, compliance. The first guard reached for her wrist. Maya moved. It was not a fighting move. It was a survival move. The same kind of move that had let her ancestors take down mammoths with nothing but sharpened sticks. Fast, brutal, efficient. She grabbed the guard's reaching arm and used its own momentum against it. Her body twisted, her hips turning, all of her weight focused into a single point. The guard's legs went out from under it. Its head hit the wall with a crack that echoed through the corridor. The second guard froze. For just a moment. That moment was all Maya needed. She had noticed something about the Velthrani over her weeks of observation. Their joints bent differently than human joints. There were weak points where the crystalline plates of their exoskeleton came together, places where a precise strike could cause tremendous pain. Her elbow found one of those places. Her knee found another. The second guard went down. Maya stood over their bodies, breathing hard, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never hurt another living thing this badly before. She had never wanted to, but these creatures had taken her from her home. They had tortured her and hundreds of others. They had planned to break her mind and turn her into a compliant test subject. She could not feel sorry for them. She did not have time. The corridor outside her cell was empty. The isolation wing was not heavily patrolled. Why would it be? No specimen had ever escaped from here before. Maya moved quickly and quietly, using the maintenance passages she had memorized during her transfer to this wing. She had watched every turn, counted every door, noted every camera and sensor. Human brains were very good at making maps. It was another gift from her ancestors, who had needed to navigate across vast distances just to survive. Her first stop was the environmental control room. The ship was kept at a temperature that was comfortable for the Velthrani, cool and dry, like a desert at night. Maya had noticed that her captors moved more slowly when it was warm. Their crystalline bodies did not handle heat well. She found the control panel and studied it for only a moment before she understood how it worked. The symbols were different from human writing, but the logic was the same. Temperature up, humidity up. Simple. She pushed the settings as high as they would go. Alarms began to sound throughout the ship. The Velthrani were scrambling, confused by the sudden change in their environment. Their movements became sluggish. Their coordination suffered. Maya kept moving. She had memorized the path to cell block 4. She had traced it in her mind 1,000 times during her isolation. Down 2 levels, through the research section, past the medical bay. She encountered 4 guards along the way. None of them were prepared for what they found. They expected a confused specimen wandering lost through the corridors. They found something else entirely. They found a predator on the hunt. The cell blocks were in chaos when she arrived. The heat had affected everything. The environmental controls were failing, and the specimens were awake and aware and waiting. Veen saw her first. The flower creature pressed against its transparent wall, petals fully colored for the first time since its capture. "You came back," Ven chimed. "I promised I would," Maya replied. She was already working on the cell release mechanism. "I always keep my promises." The locks clicked open. One cell, then another, then another. Creatures of every shape and size stumbled out into the corridor, blinking in the emergency lighting. Unsure of what to do next, Maya climbed onto a storage container so they could all see her. "Listen to me," she said, her voice carrying over the chaos. "The guards are weak right now. The ship's systems are confused. We have a small window of time before they recover. We need to move fast, and we need to move together." A 4-armed giant stepped forward. Its name was Kreth, and it had been a soldier on its home world before the Velthrani took it. "What is your plan, human?" Maya pointed down the corridor. "The bridge is 6 levels up. If we control the bridge, we control the ship. We take it 1 level at a time, free everyone we find along the way, and we don't stop until we're in charge." "There are too many of them," someone called out. "No," Maya said firmly. "There are too many of us. They just don't know it yet. She jumped down from the container and started walking. After a moment, the others followed. They moved through the ship like a wave. Each cell block they reached added more to their numbers. Creatures who had been broken found their strength returning when they saw they were not alone. Former soldiers and workers and children and elders, all united by a single purpose. By the time they reached the bridge, there were 300 of them. The Velthrani guards who tried to stop them were simply overwhelmed. Not by violence, though there was some of that, mostly by sheer numbers and determination. Maya was the first one through the bridge doors. Kethval was there, surrounded by his senior officers. They had weapons now, real weapons that glowed with deadly energy, but they were also surrounded by hundreds of angry specimens who had nothing left to lose. Maya stepped forward, holding a metal rod she had fashioned from a piece of lab equipment. "This ship belongs to us now," she said in perfect Velthrani. "You can leave in the escape pods or you can stay and find out what happens next. Your choice." Kethval's compound eyes studied her for a long moment. He saw the fire in her strange, flat eyes. He saw the army of freed specimens behind her. He saw his own officers hesitating, their confidence shattered by this impossible situation. Slowly, he lowered his weapon. "This is not over," he said. Maya smiled. "No, it's just beginning." One by one, the Velthrani officers moved toward the escape pods. They did not look back. When the last one was gone, Maya turned to face the bridge. The control panels glowed with unfamiliar symbols. The screens showed star maps of regions she had never seen before. It did not matter. They would learn. They would figure it out together. She looked at the creatures around her. Former prisoners. New friends. A crew unlike any that had ever existed before. "All right," she said. "Let's take this thing home." The stars looked different from the bridge of the Ascendant Mercy. Maya stood at the central viewing window, watching points of light drift slowly past. Somewhere out there, impossibly far away, was a small yellow sun with a blue planet orbiting around it. Home, Earth. 3 months had passed since the uprising. 3 months of learning how to operate a Velthrani research vessel. 3 months of teaching and being taught. 3 months of building something that had never existed before. Behind her, the bridge hummed with activity. Veen sat at the communications console, its pedals now bright and healthy, translating signals from a dozen different languages. Kreth commanded the navigation station, its 4 arms moving across the controls with practiced ease. Smaller creatures from 100 different worlds worked alongside them, each one finding a place where they could contribute. They had become a crew. More than that, they had become a family. The journey back to known space had been long and difficult. The ship had been damaged during the uprising. Many of its systems were designed for Velthrani operators, not the mixed collection of species who now called it home. There had been setbacks and failures and moments when it seemed like they would never make it. But they had kept going. Together, "We are entering consortium communication range." Veen chimed from its station. "They will be able to receive our signal now." Maya nodded. This was the moment they had been preparing for. Not just escape, not just survival. Something bigger. A message. She had written it herself, with help from the others. Every species had contributed something. Every voice had been heard. Now it was time to share it with the galaxy. "Open a channel," Maya said. "All frequencies. Maximum range." The screens around the bridge flickered as the signal went out. It would take time to spread, bouncing from relay to relay, reaching every corner of civilized space. But eventually, everyone would hear it. Maya stepped forward and began to speak. "This is Maya Chen of Earth, speaking on behalf of the survivors of the Ascendant Mercy." Her voice was calm and clear. She was not the same frightened student who had been taken from her lab all those months ago. She was not sure who she was now. Someone new, someone forged in fire and darkness and hope. "We are returning your ship. Consider it a warning." She paused, letting the words sink in across the void. "You came to my world looking for easy prey. You found students and workers and ordinary people living ordinary lives. What you did not understand is that there is no such thing as an ordinary human." Behind her, the crew listened in silence. They had heard this speech before during the practice sessions, but it still gave them chills. It reminded them of why they had fought, why they had survived. "We are all forged on a world that tried to kill us every single day. Our planet is covered in predators and poisons and disasters. Our weather tries to freeze us and burn us and wash us away. Our own bodies carry 1,000 diseases that would wipe out other species entirely. Maya's voice grew stronger as she continued. But we do not die, we adapt, we learn, we fight, and we never, ever give up. She thought of her grandmother, teaching her to be brave in the face of fear. She thought of her mother, singing songs of hope during the darkest nights. She thought of every human who had ever looked at an impossible situation and refused to accept defeat. The creatures on this ship came from gentle worlds. They had never known true hardship before they were taken. But they learned. We taught each other. We became strong together. She spread her arms, gesturing to the crew around her. Look at us now. We are not victims anymore. We are survivors. We are warriors. We are proof that hope is stronger than fear and that freedom is worth fighting for. The transmission continued to spread. In Velthrani space, officers watched with growing unease. In distant corners of the galaxy, species who had never heard of Earth stopped what they were doing to listen. Something was changing. They could feel it. I do not know what happens next, Maya admitted. I do not know if we will make it home. I do not know what the future holds for any of us. But I know one thing for certain. She leaned closer to the camera, her eyes bright with conviction. We are not alone. None of us are alone. And as long as there are beings in this galaxy willing to stand up and fight for what is right, there is hope. The message ended. The screens went quiet. For a long moment, no one on the bridge moved. Then Veen began to make a sound that Maya had never heard before, a kind of musical hum that seemed to resonate through the entire ship. What is that? Maya asked. It is how my people celebrate, Van replied. I had forgotten the melody. You helped me remember. Soon other sounds joined in. Kreth's deep rumbling chant, the high trilling of the small furry creatures, a dozen different voices creating a harmony that should have been impossible. Maya closed her eyes and listened. This was why she had fought. This was why she had refused to break. Not for revenge, not for glory, for this moment, for connection, for hope. A signal came in from the void. Then another, and another. Species who had heard the message were responding. Some offered help. Some offered sanctuary. Some simply wanted to know more about the strange, soft creatures from the Deathworld who had done the impossible. Earth was still far away. The journey home would be long and full of challenges. But Maya was not worried. She looked around at her crew. Her family. Her proof that anything was possible when you refused to give up. She had started this journey as a tired graduate student working alone in a lab. She had been taken by beings who saw her as nothing but a specimen. She had lost everything she knew and loved. But she had found something new, something precious, something that would change the galaxy forever. She had found her purpose. The Ascendant Mercy turned toward the stars and began its long journey home. Behind it, a message continued to spread across the cosmos. A message about a small blue planet and the strange creatures who lived there. A message about strength and hope and the unbreakable human spirit. A message that would never be forgotten. Maya smiled as she watched the stars slip past. She was going home, and the galaxy would never be the same.